My wife divorced me and kicked me out of the house after I lost my job. For the next year, I struggled to survive, but then I won a lawsuit for wrongful termination and received $2 million. After that, she begged me to let her visit my new mansion. I'm writing this mainly to remind myself that the last 18 months weren't some kind of fever dream, even though it sometimes felt like it. It all started on a Tuesday when I was fired. The company called it restructuring, but I called it getting fired with a box of my personal belongings and empty words of best wishes. I was the primary breadwinner in my family, working a very stressful job, while my wife, Catherine, a 36-year-old part-time yoga instructor, earned most of her income from selling expensive leggings. The first 2 weeks after losing my job weren't too bad. Catherine behaved like a decent partner, making tea and saying comforting things like, "We'll get through this," or "The main thing is your health." But I could see that something was wrong in her eyes, as if she were mentally calculating how long she could hold out before giving up. I had seen that look before when she looked at her expensive handbag. By the third week, her support began to fade. Her parents, Christian and Doris, started calling, not out of genuine concern, but because they wanted to know how I planned to get back to work. Christian, who had never faced financial uncertainty in his life, even offered me a job moving furniture for one of his friends. It wasn't a kind offer, just a test to see how desperate I was. The final blow came a month after I lost my job. I was sitting at my laptop, immersed in a job search, when Catherine walked in, not in her usual yoga clothes, but in a strict blazer I had bought her. She looked like she was going to a meeting. Her voice was cold when she said, "I can't live like this." I barely looked up. "Can't what?" I asked. "Live like this. I can't be tied to a sinking ship." After 10 years of marriage, that was it. She didn't even look guilty. She continued, "I've thought about it, and my parents agree. This isn't the life I signed up for. The house is in my name. I think you'd better pack your things. You can stay with Sean, right?" It was a move her father had planned before the wedding, transferring the house to her name. At the time, it had seemed like a simple formality, but now I felt trapped. I packed my things and moved in with my best friend Sean without a second thought. He gave me his spare room, entertained me with bad jokes, and kept me supplied with beer. The divorce was brutal and quick. Catherine and her lawyer simply crushed me. I had no income, no savings, and no strength to fight. She made me look like a loser in front of our mutual friends, kept the house, the furniture, and even the paintings we had bought together. I was ordered to hand over my grandfather's watch so it could be sold as joint property. To top it all off, her brother Terry, an arrogant real estate agent, helped her take my collection of 3 vintage guitars, claiming they were cheap knockoffs, which was not true. I had to watch him load them into his SUV, patting me on the shoulder and saying, "Keep your head up, champ. Better days are coming." For the next year, I was like a ship without a rudder. I took a job as a grocery delivery man to make ends meet, ate instant noodles, and avoided calls from mutual friends who were clearly snitching on me to Catherine. It was the lowest point of my life. But here's the interesting thing about hitting rock bottom. It's a solid foundation for a new start. And I had a secret. While I was delivering bags of cabbage to suburban homes, I was quietly working with a lawyer, an excellent, smart labor lawyer. My dismissal wasn't just bad luck, it was illegal. I had emails, a recording of the conversation, and all the necessary evidence. By May, the divorce was final. I was officially a single, broke, 38-year-old man living in a friend's room, while Catherine, judging by her Instagram, was living the best life. Then my lawyer called. "The company has decided to settle to avoid a public trial." The first thing I did was cry. I sat in my car for 10 minutes, letting out a year's worth of stress. It was cathartic. The second thing I did was call Sean. When I told him the news, he started laughing. I transferred him $50,000 while we were on the phone so he could pay his rent, beer, and bad jokes, thanking him for being a true friend when I had nothing. He tried to refuse, but I insisted that he buy that guitar he had been eyeing. Then I moved on to practical matters: financial advisor, low-risk investments, boring stuff. And I decided to buy a house. The decision wasn't final yet, but I made an offer and it was accepted. The checks and paperwork were still going on, but just knowing that it was happening was incredible. It's a modern house with lots of glass and a pool overlooking a small private lake, 1,000,000 miles away from Sean's room. The thought of having my own space again, my own coffee maker, my own front door, it was amazing. When news of my new circumstances spread, I re-enrolled at the expensive gym I used to go to. Some acquaintances saw me there and gasped. Rumors must have spread at an incredible speed. The first message from Catherine came last Tuesday evening. "Hi, I hear you're back in town and buying a new apartment. Wow, I'm so happy for you. We have to meet up." I stared at that message for hours. How brazen. The exclamation marks felt like daggers. "So happy for you." It took me a while to collect my thoughts and respond with all my stoicism. My reply was calm, but I could feel her stumbling over her words as she tried to formulate a response. An hour later, the phone rang. It was Jacqueline, Catherine's best friend and former gossip. "Oh my God, I can't believe the news! A house on the lake? You bastard!" she squealed. "Hi, Jacqueline," I said. "Catherine is very happy for you, but she's also a little hurt. You know, she said your message was very cold." I almost laughed at how ridiculous it all was. It hurt to see how it ended, but I had come to terms with it. Jacqueline called, and there was fake sympathy in her voice. She kept talking about how much pressure she was under, how her parents had brainwashed her, and how she hadn't really done any of those things. The woman who once called me a sinking ship and made her brother take my guitars, apparently that wasn't her. There was a short, awkward pause, after which Jacqueline, sounding emotional, stammered, "Anyway, she just wants to talk, clear things up. She still cares about you." "That's sweet of her," I replied calmly. But I made it clear that I was focused on my new life. The old chapter was closed. I ended the conversation without letting her respond. I went into the closet in Sean's room, pulled out a box, and found the receipts and insurance appraisals for my guitars. I took pictures of them, then stumbled across Terry's smug face on his real estate website. I forwarded the photos and his work address to my lawyer with a simple message: "Return my property." The case quickly gained momentum. I believed they would take the hint and back off, but instead things got even louder. First, Terry showed up. My lawyer, a woman who clearly loved her job, sent him a well-written letter. It stated the insurance value of the guitars, attached proof of my ownership prior to the marriage, and offered two options: return the items in their original condition within 7 days, or I would file a police report for theft and a civil suit for the full value of the items plus damages. Terry called, breathless. "What is this nonsense? Your lawyer is threatening me." "Hello, Terry," I interrupted calmly. "I think the letter speaks for itself. You knowingly took my personal property based on a lie. The deadline is Tuesday. I recommend you contact my lawyer." I hung up. On Tuesday morning, I received the guitars. A beat-up van pulled up to Sean's house, causing the neighbors to look out in confusion. 2 guys left the cases in the lobby, and I immediately opened them. My beloved 1964 Stratocaster had a huge crack in the neck, and the vintage Gibson was stained with something that looked like beer. I took about 50 high-resolution photos and sent them to my lawyer. She filed a lawsuit against Terry for about $8,500 for repairs and damages. Terry was served with the papers at his office in front of his co-workers. Oops. Then Catherine's parents showed up. Her mother, Doris, left me increasingly desperate voicemails full of disappointment in my behavior, calling me cruel and vindictive. "You're a rich man now, be generous." I asked my lawyer to send them a polite letter demanding that they stop the harassment. But the main event was Catherine. After her intermediaries failed, she tried to contact me directly. It started with tearful messages about how she had made a mistake and missed me. When I didn't respond, she resorted to more aggressive tactics. She sent a photo of us from our trip to Italy, which was a low blow. The message read, "Remember this?" This was the real us. I was wrong. I was afraid. I heard the house deal went through. It must be beautiful. Can I see it? I don't want anything. I just want to apologize in person. The manipulation was so obvious that it was almost impressive. I took a screenshot of the text and then wrote one last letter. The subject line was communication. The text of the letter was as follows. Catherine, in accordance with the terms of our legally binding divorce settlement, all matters between us have been settled. Your attempts to contact me, as well as those of your family, are inappropriate. Your request to visit my home has been denied. This is my last communication on this matter. Any further contact from you or your family will be considered harassment. I wish you all the best. I attached a PDF file with the divorce decree and then blocked her number, her parents' numbers, and Jacqueline's number. I built a digital wall. I believed that would be the end of it, but how naive I was. Finally, it was over. I'm sitting at my new office desk overlooking the lake. The move was chaotic, but for the first time in almost 2 years, I feel at home. The last few months have been a master class in watching people refuse to accept the consequences of their actions. The petty lawsuit against Terry was laughable. He showed up in a suit, ready to argue. I simply showed the judge photos of my guitars before and after, one from the insurance appraisal, and the other I took in Sean's hallway. The judge barely glanced at Terry before awarding me the full amount. Sean told me that Terry's real estate business was built on his reputation as a smooth, trustworthy guy. It turns out that being convicted of theft and damage isn't very good for your image. Catherine's social circle fell apart. Her stories about her vengeful ex fell apart when people realized I hadn't done anything to her. I didn't slander her or yell at her. I simply sent her legally accurate letters and blocked her. Last I heard, she was trying to find a roommate for her large house because she couldn't pay the mortgage and property taxes. You can guess the rest. The grand finale happened about a month ago. It was a Saturday, a week after I finished unpacking. I was making coffee in the kitchen when I got a notification from the security camera. I opened the feed, and there she was, Catherine, standing at my gate and peering through the fence. She rang the doorbell. I watched the video on my phone. My heart was pounding, but not from fear, but from a strange sense of finality. "Arthur, it's me. Please let me in. We need to talk." Her voice came through the speaker. I didn't answer. I just watched. She tried again, her voice more demanding. She pushed the gate. I didn't feel anger. I just felt tired of her. So I did the most boring and methodical thing I could think of. I dialed the number of the local police station. I calmly explained that there was a person on my property who had previously been warned in writing not to approach and was refusing to leave. I gave her name and my address. 20 minutes later, a police car pulled up outside my house. I watched on my phone as a polite but firm police officer spoke at length with Catherine. No one shouted, just the quiet, deep humiliation that a person feels when a uniformed police officer tells them they must leave and could be arrested for trespassing if they return. She got into her car and drove away. I saved it all in the cloud. I haven't heard from them since. As for me, I'm fine, more than fine. Money doesn't make me happy, but the freedom it bought me does. I now work as a consultant, but only on projects I really enjoy. I've reconnected with old friends whom Catherine considered not ambitious enough, and we laugh a lot. There was no Hollywood ending. Catherine didn't realize her mistakes. People like her don't have epiphanies. They just move on to their next victim. I heard she's dating a dentist now. Good for him. I didn't get revenge. I got what she wanted. She wanted to treat our marriage like a business deal, and I let her. She just cashed in her chips at the bottom of the market. Bad luck. The other day, I was sitting on the patio watching the sunset over the lake. For the first time in a long time, my mind was completely calm. No anger, no resentment, no strategic calculations, just peace. And I realized that this was worth more than any lawsuit.